NEWS.MC on Monaco Info is brought to you by Monaco Legend Properties. Our exclusive interview with the personalities making the Principality.
My name is Ian Sosso. I'm the founder of Monte-Carlo Capital. I was born in Monaco. I'm a Monegasque. I think my family has been here since the early 19th, mid 19th century. And I went to do my own schooling in Lycée Albert Ier, at the time when you could do the entire schooling here in Monaco, in Lycée Albert Ier. I wanted to become an investment banker. That was a time when it was still fashionable to be a banker. I had to spend a year in Paris. Being a Monegasque at the time, it was very difficult for me to get a visa to work in London. So the bank that hired me sent me a year in Paris, where I was a trader, and then moved me back to London. So that was the early years. My dad was working for government for a very long time. Then he went to work for SBM, and he had a short stint at une société called the Société Monégasque d'Électronique. So a very traditional background. I think nobody ever pushed me to do any of those things. But, I guess pretty young, I realized that probably life had to be an adventure and there needed to be a journey. The path to that was, to study in a good school and work in an investment bank and hopefully travel a bit, which is something I ended up doing. I got a job with HSBC on the trading floor in London. At the time, it was the largest trading floor in Europe, and I was one of the very few non-British guys working on the trading floor. So I started by trading Eurobonds, and things went on very fast on the back of that. One day I came back from a holiday, and my boss tells me, Ian, I booked you on a flight to Tokyo. You're off to Japan in 2 days for 2 weeks initially, because we lost our options team in Japan. So I was 25 years old, and here I moved to Japan for 2 weeks. I love the place, and I didn't want to come back. So in the end, I ended up spending close to 4 years in Japan. Then I moved to another bank called UBS. At the time, it was the largest bank in the world in terms of their options activity. So I became responsible for structuring transactions for Japanese companies and insurance companies in Japan. I then moved to Singapore, where I was again working for UBS, and there I was focusing on structuring transactions and derivative transactions for hedge funds. I was advising them on their currency option strategies, and then JP Morgan, the American bank, offered me a job in Singapore to help them build their options business and promote it throughout Asia. So I joined them. I did that for a few years, and then about 16 years ago, I decided that my days in banking were gone, and I always had back on my mind to build my own business. So this is what I did. I left banking, and initially I moved to Bali with my wife, who I met in London about 22, 23 years ago. When I moved to Bali, she came with me, and we spent about 2 or 3 years between Asia and Europe, and I started to do my own things. And then all of this became a proper business, but that wasn't the intention at the time. I think it's a lot easier to build a business if you're solving a real problem, or if you're addressing something that is very inefficient. Half of what we do is investing in businesses solving problems via technology. We invest in space, in defense, in AI. The other half is solving big inefficiencies. And typically it's what we call business to business. These are business solutions. It's about digitalization of work, making businesses significantly more efficient. And it means essentially software, a lot of AI. In terms of success, venture is following what we call a power law. A power law is the essential law of venture capital. Essentially, it's a law which says that a few investments we're doing will have significant return and will generate the return of your portfolio. We're losing along the way. There's no investor in our sector that never loses. But what we say is that what matters is not the one that goes from 1 to 0. What we're looking for is the one that goes from 1 to 50, because the 1 to 50 will essentially offset 49 losses. We're looking for the 50 to 100 times return on investments every single time we invest, which means that when we go in a very early stage, we need to shoot for those companies that can be worth multi-billion dollars. And of course, those are rare. So you need to look for markets that are big enough to sustain such a big business. And of course, in the end, the key is the people. We always say that a great team will find a way to get an average business to work. An average team will take a great idea and will find a way to mess it up. I like to find teams that have exceptional pedigrees, ideally serial entrepreneurs, that is at least their second business, work for big firms. In our books, we have people who come from the MIT, from Stanford, École Polytechnique, Cambridge. They went to work for Google, they went to work for SpaceX, they went to work for amazing businesses. We see about 2,500 companies a year. And the back of that, there's a filter, and we go through due diligence, and in the end, we pick 10 to 12 every year. You can have a multi-billion-dollar business with zero revenue based on the intellectual property. So the question is there a market? And in deep tech, it's typically a lot easier to determine than in software. Is there a market? But we invested in a company very recently looking to launch the first data center in space. The question is, can you build it? So you're taking a technological risk. Now the question is a team strong enough to build a business, which is the biggest question most of the time. Is there inherent moats in a business model that gives us comfort that if you're successful, you're not going to have 25 other copycats that will take away your business? I run all the public markets for my bank, but I always invested personally in private markets on the basis that if I can source transactions and structure them and influence them all the way to the exits, I could generate substantially higher returns compared to investing in the public market. So although I run public markets, I invested in private markets, essentially private equity. So I became a very active, what we call an angel investor. We are the very beginning of the growth in technology. Pyramids are only 5,000 years old, and we think is old. But Earth is 4.5 billion years. If you project yourself 100 years down the line, 1,000 years down the line, 100,000 years, 1,000,000 years, we are at the beginning of civilization, and what will grow civilization is technology. As an investor, I want to position myself in what I think is the strongest trend of our life and most likely of the next generations as well. So I started to organize what we call a syndicate, club deals. I would run a deal, I would source it, structure it, due diligence, help the companies, and bring a group of investors together with me to take a participation. And then if things go well, I would be the main investor into the subset or the next rounds as well, and be very hands-on. So I became a very hands-on angel investor. At the time, it was becoming clear that I spent more and more time in Monaco. With time, my entire family lives here. I think it was just a time for me just to go back home. And to do what I do, I could be based anywhere in the world. But Monaco was just such an obvious place for me to come back to. I need to focus on what I can control so that I can mitigate the risk of what I cannot control. The way I do that is I invest a little bit constantly throughout the cycles, no matter what's going on in the world. Because if I'm backing today a company that is worth 10, 20, 30, $40 million with a view to sell it in 7, 8, 9, 10 years for billions, the level of the stock market today is irrelevant. Who is in the White House today or who is running French politics is irrelevant. What matters to me is finding the right team, the right problem to solve, the right technology, and having a strong group of investors to ensure that as the businesses grow, the day we need to sell it, we'll have a great business to sell. And if at the time there is a crisis, which may be in 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years, and I have no idea, I have a business that is strong enough to go through it. That's the way I've been investing. I'm not trying to predict cycles. I'm adapting the way I invest so that no matter what happens, my strategy makes sense over the long term. We're also doing co-investments. So the investors we have in the fund have the opportunity in about 70% of the investment we're making to also pick and choose some of the company that we're investing in and do a direct investment. So where we launch what we call an SPV, which is a dedicated vehicle. And we deploy actually a lot more capital via SPVs and via the fund. And as the businesses grow, we deploy more and more capital through the SPVs. And the investors in our group have the option, if they want, to carry on building positions in the best performing companies. I think a lot of people have been trying to disrupt the financial industry. I think it's very easy to see the shortcomings and the inefficiencies of the financial industry, but it's been serving us pretty well for a long time. I think some of the benefits of using crypto just at a very large sense is that you can try and avoid some of the inefficiencies. Time will tell how successful this is. I think it has some specific use cases for which is very appropriate. You need some level of regulations in everything we do, otherwise you get to abuses, you get to wrong usage. We're actually not touching that ourselves. I think there's a lot more interesting use cases outside of crypto. So we stayed completely clear of anything that has a crypto word attached to it. AI initially could have been a question. But we've been investing in AI for about 8 years now, before it was so well known. Of course, we see so much investment in AI right now, and we want to avoid as much as possible the companies that have the latest fads. Having said that, I think AI is a fundamental shift, and we are just at the beginning. And I think people talk a lot about it, but I think the life will be changed to a significant degree. The way we work and the way we live and the way we interact. As an investor, we're looking to back the winners. We're looking to back the companies that will create substantial return for us. It is easy to find good ideas. It's harder to find companies that will succeed. So whenever we're looking at AI, we are looking for elements that are proper to AI. The cost of using tokens, for example. Whenever you're using somebody else's large language models, there is a cost. The access to data, the fact that training models or using models is very expensive, the fact that hiring people is also extremely expensive in a sector. Blockchain essentially is an enabler. It has significant application. I don't look at a business because it's using blockchain. It wouldn't just even cross my mind to do that. But we're investing, of course, in businesses that are using blockchain, just like we're investing heavily in businesses investing in AI. I think it takes a long time to get through everybody using blockchain. I think there's some use cases that are significantly more appropriate and easy to use. Governments are a lot more conservative, and it would take more time. Blockchain has significant benefits in terms of traceability, but on the other hand, the adoption can take a very long time. So we are a village. The community, the Monégasque community, is very close, and whenever I can do something, I'm always happy to come in if asked. I love the social life in Monaco. I love going out. I love meeting new people. It's part of the pleasures I have. And Monaco has you interview a lot of very interesting characters, and I love the chance of meeting people who've got great stories. It's part of my job. It's something I enjoy in my life. And Monaco has an incredible concentration of those that I think is on the increase. The pace of change in that respect is more and more interesting. Younger families are coming here. Monaco remains, so hopefully will carry on being a safe haven, a place where people find comfort, safety, and enjoy living. Beyond, by the way, the obvious benefits that everybody talks about. There's everything else, which I think is increasingly important in the world we're living. And oddly enough, when I meet people for the first time, it's not always obvious for them I'm from here, particularly if I'm speaking with them in English. And they're very often trying to sell me Monaco. They always tell me this is the best place in the world. I came here usually for a reason, because I sold my business or whatever, and now I'm staying because I can't think of a better place to live. And I hear that constantly, over and over again. When I was living in other places, no, that's not what I was hearing. Entrepreneurship, I think, is a very hard life, and I think not very few people are built for it. Just build, fail, try again, see what drives you, see what excites you, see what you're built for, see how you can lead. That's what I would advise, is try it out, see whether you're fit for it. I hope I can pass it on to my children so that they can discover the taste for the experience, because this is, I think, what life is made of. Particularly when you get started, you need to be driven by a desire to do something of your life. I hope I can pass this on.
That's all for today. Thank you for watching NEWS.MC, your English rendezvous on Monaco Info. Discover more interviews and stories on our websites, NEWS.MC and MonacoInfo.com. This show was brought to you by Monaco Legend Properties.